I'm Lisa from New York, and I want to share my story. My husband, Joy, is 28, and we've been married for 4 years. Recently, I fell ill and had to take a week off work without notifying anyone. When I returned, my boss was furious and confronted me about my absence. He insisted that I should have requested leave in advance and, to my shock, told me not to come back the next day. I was devastated and pleaded with him, explaining that my husband was unemployed and my salary was our only source of income. I begged him not to fire me, promising that I would never take leave without notice again. However, he remained firm in his decision. In a moment of desperation, I even knelt before him, hoping to change his mind as I expressed my need for the job. He offered me a deal he wouldn't terminate my employment if I agreed to his condition. Without hesitation, I accepted, stating that I would comply with whatever he required to keep my job, as it was crucial for our survival. The manager expressed a desire to spend the night with me. Initially, I was taken aback by his words. I stared at him, trying to contain my shock, and replied, "Sir, how can this be? Just because I said I would do anything for my job doesn't mean I would agree to this. I'm married, and this isn't something I can entertain." He responded, "If you're married, do you think that gives you the freedom to refuse? If you want to keep your job, you need to decide. Otherwise, don't bother coming in tomorrow. If you comply, I can offer you whatever you desire, along with a substantial amount of money. You know, I live alone since my wife is at her parents' house." I struggled to hide my conflicting emotions as I stood there, my head down. The boss added, "Take your time to think about it until this evening." I agreed and left his office, heading home to share everything with my husband. He encouraged me to make my own choice, assuring me he felt relieved and explained that this could solve our financial issues since my boss promised a significant salary increase. Hearing this made me happy. I then called my boss, who instructed me to come to his bungalow at 9 p.m. I confirmed and hung up. I informed my husband about the meeting, and he was fine with it. Later, as I prepared for the evening, I took a bath and emerged looking stunning. When it was time, I asked my husband to drop me off at my boss's place. He took the bike and dropped me off, reminding me to call him in the morning for a ride back. I agreed and entered the house. My boss greeted me warmly and kept glancing my way. He then inquired about who had come to drop me off, to which I replied that it was my husband. After that, we both headed to the bedroom and exchanged glances. The boss retrieved a whiskey bottle from the cupboard and gestured for me to pour. I filled a glass with liquor, added some water, and prepared 2 drinks instead of 1, as the boss had initially requested. Hesitant at first, I eventually picked up the glass at his insistence. We toasted and drank together. By 4 a.m., we were both fast asleep. At 9 a.m., I called my husband. He answered, and I spoke softly, asking where he was and when he would return home. He requested to sleep a bit longer, and I agreed, telling him to rest. He then said he would come home, and I mentioned I was on my way. I arrived at my boss's house and rang the bell. After a few moments, my boss opened the door and asked what I needed. I explained that I was there to pick up my husband. He welcomed me in and closed the door behind us. The boss seated me in the living room while he went to the bedroom to wake my husband. He got up and freshened up, and while we waited, the boss shared how fortunate he felt to have such a wonderful wife. I agreed, saying he was right. He then mentioned he would take care of my husband's job, to which I expressed my gratitude and said he could send him over whenever I needed. The boss responded to the objection by saying, "All right, I will schedule you to come in 2 days a week. If you're interested, you can also take on the job." I nodded in agreement, and then my husband and I left and headed home.